Yeah. Yep, we're good. What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? Welcome in to the first live stream episode of the Melanin Money Show. How you feeling, George?
Feeling good. I'm feeling great. Hopefully not the last. We'll determine that by how today goes. But nah, feeling good. Feeling good. How are
Y-
you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm excited about today because one of the things we've been trying to, improve with our podcast is being on time with the latest and greatest news, right? Because we do pre-record and sometimes batch episodes with certain guests, our listeners end up missing a lot of the relevant financial news that ends up coming out. And as we enter into this new year, our goal is to be one of the biggest and fastest, news outlets when it comes, or media outlets when it comes to financial news, investing, taxes, and I think this live stream is going to help us be better for our listeners.
Absolutely, y'all. So this is our first time doing. Obviously, we're not doing podcasting. It's kind of nostalgic in the sense that if you go back to the OG episodes of the Melon Money Show, we were on a Zoom screen, which is much lower camera quality. And so to come back now to doing it in a live format with an upgraded setup and 100,000 YouTube subscribers.
Yes, sir.
Shout out to y'all. Is this kind of a full circle moment just to say, hey, look, consistency, pays off. We did an episode every week since August 1st of 2021, which is crazy
Which is crazy.
to think about. So,
Yeah.
yeah, guys. So today we're going to be in a live segment, as Carter mentioned. It gives us opportunity to touch on what things that are happening in real time. So we're going to hop on, a few relevant topics. Obviously, the chat function is open, so as you guys hop onto the stream,
Actually, it's disabled.
questions in there.
It's disabled. I don't know why it's disabled, but it is. It says the chat is disabled for this live stream. So I think next time I got to hit a button before we go live to enable the chat. I don't want to start it over. So
Understood.
yeah.
The chat is not enabled. However, send us a DM, and maybe next time when we do this, we'll definitely have the chat enabled. So, Carter, let's get right into it, my brother.
For sure, man. So I think one of the first things I want to talk about, which everybody is, everybody's asking about, is the major updates to the Big Beautiful Bill, right? As we know, 2026 is the second year of the first tax season of the Big Beautiful Bill. So I want to make sure everybody is in the loop and has the latest, greatest news when it comes to how this tax bill is going to change your tax refund situation for 2026, but also affect your overall tax bill for 2026. So I'm going to go over what I think are the most pressing points of the Big Beautiful Bill, and then we can go from there. So to pull up my notes here, one thing that Donald Trump did say is, due to the updates in the bill, he does expect that 2026 for it to be the largest tax refunds in U.S. history due to the enhanced deductions, due to the enhanced tax credits. And I think I think the tax refunds are going to be larger in 2027 because we only had like a half year to implement the strategies in the bill. So now that we have a full year and have a full understanding on everything the bill entails, I do think that 2027 will yield even larger refunds than 2026 due to that reason. So the first thing I want to bring up is the change to the overall tax brackets, right? So the TCJA 2017 had different tax brackets in this big beautiful bill. So some tax rates dropped by either 2 to 3%. So we saw the highest tax rate go from 39.6% to 37%. The next bracket that changed was the 25% tax bracket got decreased to 22%. And then last but not least, the 15% tax bracket got decreased to 12%. And the income thresholds that associate with these, you're going to be able to pull up a tax bracket for 2026 and be able to see where you land. And I think it's important for everybody to know there's a difference between your effective tax rate and your marginal tax rate. Okay? Your marginal tax rate is whatever tax bracket your highest dollar is in. So if you make $150,000, that might put you in the 20% tax bracket. But that does not mean that all $120,000 is taxed at that 20%. You have a portion that's taxed at 0%, a portion that's taxed at 10, a portion that's taxed at 12. So your marginal tax rate is the highest tax bracket that you end up. Your effective tax rate is the average tax rate that you pay on every single dollar. And I think it's key that everybody understands that difference. So
that's a good point. I don't think that many people do understand that difference. They just look at, oh, my tax rate is this is how much I'm paying in taxes based upon my total amount of income that I make, and they can kind of be misled. Now that doesn't mean that you're still not overpaying taxes, but it does give you some insight on how that's actually broken down, so you can better gauge what you're expected to pay based upon how those tax rates are set up. So that's a good distinction for sure.
yeah, 100%. The second thing is the increase to the standard deduction. So every American has a choice to either select the standard deduction, or they have an option to itemize their deductions. You want to pick whichever gives you the highest deduction. So in 2026, the standard deduction for if you're single is $16,100, and if you're married is $32,200. So for every married couple, the first $32,200 that you earn as an American is not taxed, okay? If you take the standard deduction. If you're single, the first $16,100 is not taxed. So the standard deduction is increases at its highest it's ever been. Currently at these income thresholds. And again, this is why it's so important to take advantage of the strategy of paying your children if you have a business, because you can pay them up to the standard deduction, and that money won't be taxed because the standard deduction will wipe that money out on their tax bill. So we all have the opportunity, if you have a business, to pay your children up to $16,100 per child, and that money not only will be tax deductible to you, but it will be tax free to them. Now the next one, George, is for you, okay? The next one is the increase to the SALT cap deduction. So the SALT deduction is state and local taxes, right? Which includes property taxes. Before, right? Which includes property taxes. And you just bought a really big house in one of the highest property tax states in the country.
Yeah, got it. I was in Peru Awakening when I was like, man, it's a good rate on this house. And I looked at the monthly payment and more. And I was like, Mom, I'm good at math. Why is it higher? And I looked at the tax line. I said, oh, they getting your boy. I said, gotcha. And he was the guy gave me. Gotcha.
Yeah. Too late.
So yes, you can get more bang for your buck from your house in the great state of Texas, but do not forget about those taxes. So yes, please, let me know how I'm able to.
Yeah. So the SALT cap deduction used to be capped at $10,000. So when you add your state and local taxes and property taxes, if that was above $10,000, you're just out of luck, right? However, in 2026, with this increase, with this big beautiful bill, the SALT cap deduction has increased to $40,000, right? And I don't know if your property taxes are above or below $40,000, but you're going to be able to write off all $40,000 in property taxes, because get this, now the property taxes is more than your standard deduction, right? So it's going to make sense for you this year to itemize, because $40,000 is the deduction. You know, the standard deduction for married, filing, and joint is $36,200. So now it just automatically makes sense to itemize just off the property taxes. Now that's not including any charitable donations that you make or any other of the Schedule A deduction. So this year it's going to make sense to itemize and write off all those property taxes.
And that's all right there, man. That's music. That is music to my ears. Love to see it. Love to hear it. Hey, look, man, Trump, don't say he ain't never did nothing for you.
Yeah, so if you live in a high property tax or high state tax state like New York, California, New Jersey, Illinois, these are states with high state taxes. So SALT is you to add whatever your state tax bill is in addition to your property taxes. Now in Texas, we don't have state taxes, but somewhere like New York, they have property taxes and state taxes. So you can add all those things up and write them off on your taxes. So anybody who's a homeowner or is a state with high state taxes, do not miss out on that increased SALT cap deduction. Gotta love it. I mean, I don't mind this new bill at all. I mean, say what you want about Trump. I'm gonna say what I want about this new bill, and I don't mind it at all. Okay. Number four, I think this is for everybody. At least Trump is advertising that it's for everybody, which is the new vehicle interest deduction, right? So with the new bill, a lot of people were complaining about all these business owners buying all these G-Wagons and writing all these things off, but W-2 employees, they don't get, they can't write off any vehicle, any payments, any interest. So the update in this bill was that if you buy a vehicle as a W-2 employee or a working professional, if the vehicle meets the standards, which basically means it's made in America, you get to write off up to $10,000 in vehicle interest. And that's, me and you both know, George, when you finance a vehicle, 80 to 90% of the payment the first couple of years is all interest, right? So you get to write off up to $10,000 in interest. Now, this doesn't mean go buy a car that you can afford, right? It doesn't mean you buy a car that you can't afford, but it does mean if you were to buy a car as a W-2 employee and it was an American-made car and it fits this list, you can write off up to $10,000 of your vehicle interest against your taxable income.
Big facts. Big facts.
Yeah. So,
We'd love to hear it.
I mean, I see nothing but wins. And last but not least, and something you can also take advantage of is the child tax credit being increased from $2,000 to $2,200. So now you get a $2,200 tax credit per child. And real quick, let me just break down the difference between a tax deduction and a tax credit. Tax deduction is a reduction of your taxable income. So if you get a $10,000 tax deduction, that does not mean you save $10,000 from taxes. You take that $10,000, you multiply it by your tax rate, and that is how much you save. So if you're in a 30% tax bracket and you get a $10,000 deduction, you save $3,000 in taxes. Tax credits is a literal dollar for dollar reduction on your tax bill. So this $2,200 tax credit would reduce your tax bill by $2,200. Now, if you match this with the Trump accounts, you're really getting $3,200 per child, because you get a $2,200 child tax credit and you get a $1,000 Trump account for your newborn if they're born between 2025 and 2028. And that schedule or that paperwork or that application will be available July of 2026. So those are the major deductions that I want to hit on. There are other things in the bill. I just don't want to go through the whole bill, but like that's some of the major things that came out, along with 100% bonus depreciation, along with the extension of the QBI deduction. But those are some of the main things that I want our everyday listeners to be looking out for.
No, I think that's good. I mean, I think again, like we always say when we are advising our clients that the easiest way to make more money is to pay less taxes, right? And so understanding how the tax bill works, how you can take advantage of it, is going to pay dividends, pun intended, for how you'll be able to build more in 2026. So thank you for sharing those updates with our listeners. Now, y'all gonna do something with it now.
Yeah, I mean,
right? Like actually take advantage of it, because there's a lot in there that many of you guys that are listening should be able to take advantage of at least some component of it. So let us know in the comments, what is the first thing from the bill that you guys are going to take advantage of in 2026?
yes, sir. All right, what's up next?
All right, so another hot topic is, I think generally speaking, consumer confidence has plunged to a multi-year low. And the reason why I'm interested in touching on this is because when consumer confidence goes down, that means people are less likely to spend. If people are less likely to spend, that means the economy doesn't get boosted the way that we expect. If the economy doesn't get boosted the way we expect, that can have an ancillary impact on the markets at large, right? And so I was just interested to see, and I'm wondering what's driving it, right? There's a lot going on in our world right now. We don't necessarily proclaim to be a political platform, but even Ray Charles can see that there's some very interesting things that are happening in America right now. And so I think the combination of a lot of that political unrest and just the fact that I said this to our clients about, I think, a month ago, that when it comes to the markets this year, I think we're going to experience more volatility for pretty average returns, right? So what does that mean? That means, imagine going to a theme park and you have all of these drops on the roller coaster, but the roller coaster isn't necessarily any more exciting than the one that you rode was a lot smoother, right? And so I think we're gonna see a lot of volatility this year. So that coupled with the current market sentiment, I think this has people very, very on the edge of their seat when it comes to decision making in the economy. So I think that's something to be on the lookout for. So inflation in general, even though we expect interest rates to trickle down a little bit, it's it's not going to impact cost of living in a way that you think it will. In the sense that I personally believe that as the Fed continues to print money, that obviously inflation is going to continue to go up. But when people think about interest rates going down, right, they automatically assume that that's going to be good for them because they can borrow at a cheaper rate. But the reality is, because of the inverse relationship, when those rates go down, people get access to more money. They get access to more money. They tend to overextend themselves. They overextend themselves. It increases demand, and increased demand increases price. Right now, will that happen this go around because of consumer sentiment? I don't know. It could be balanced out. But for me, that is, I'd say, a yellow flag, just because I don't know what the net impact is going to be to the market. And whenever consumer sentiment is low, generally that means that the market is going to be a little more tame than normal. So you figure less upside, more volatility. That's not a ride that I'm really excited to ride in 2026.
Okay, well, knowing that that's coming, right? What should we do about it? Do we keep our same investing dollar cost average system going? Should we hold money on the sidelines in preparation for the volatility? Should anything change about our investment strategy knowing what we expect?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? Because even though you're going to experience volatility, the problem with increased volatility is you don't know exactly when and how it's going to happen, right? So you mentioned dollar cost averaging. So as long as the thesis of your current long-term portfolio is something that you still believe in and the fundamentals of the company are still great, I feel like most of your portfolio should remain pretty static, right? And what you can't do in this environment is try to predict for time of market, which you really can't do in any market environment, but you really can't do in a highly volatile environment, right? So to your point, I believe that dollar cost averaging is actually going to be one of the things that saves you, because people are going to you're going to see a lot of headlines, a lot of news, a lot of things that are going to impact the ebbs and flows of the portfolio. You're not going to know when is a good time to pursue. Is it now? Is it later? So I think dollar cost averaging more than ever is going to be a good bet. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have some opportunity capital on the sidelines, right? So if you experience a bigger dip than normal, you can take advantage of that. But I think still having a consistent amount of money that you're investing in the markets on a regular basis is still going to be beneficial. I mentioned this also to our clients, that one of the things that I'm looking to do in this market environment is, when it comes to artificial intelligence investing, really looking heavily into the infrastructure, or said another way, the shovels, right, that power the industry. Everybody's looking at the big names like NVIDIA, but I think that the valuations of those are a little overpriced, and growth is baked into a degree. Not to say that NVIDIA is still a great company to hold, but I'm still looking at companies that, despite the market sentiment, you got to remember that stocks are still businesses at the end of the day, right? The stock is what creates your ability to have ownership stake in it. It doesn't change the fact that these are businesses. So when we look at the bigger macroeconomic environment, if we believe that these companies are still going to do well, right, then these are companies that we want to still have our eyes on and we still want to invest in. And for me, the companies that I have my eye on are companies that impact the overall infrastructure of artificial intelligence.
Okay, I'm in agreement with that. I mean, not that I would go against your financial advice anyway, you being my financial advisor for the past 5 years. But one thing I do want to ask you about is, like, so I think it would be remiss if we didn't bring up what's happening with gold, right? I think gold is at a all-time high. And does that mean that if your Rolex is, because I heard somebody say on a podcast, like, his Rolex is now worth more if he just melts it than if he was to resell it on the market, because gold is worth so much now. But like with gold at all-time high, people are gonna unfortunately try to chase it, if that is the right thing to do. And do you know why the price of gold has skyrocketed so much? Is it because consumer sentiment is nervous about stock market, or people are pulling back from crypto and putting their money somewhere? Or is it because the US dollar is dropping at an astronomical rate? I think it's worth helping listeners understand what's going on.
Yeah, it's kind of a combination of a few of the things you said, right? So again, like we're all creatures of habit, and just to educate and edify everybody in the room to we're all operating on the same playing field. You know, a typical market has cycles, right? And it's supposed to be, you know, peaks and valleys, right? Expansion, contraction, and etc. Now, the challenge is the Federal Reserve is an entity that essentially can manipulate, right, or manage how long those cycles are extended, right? And so we had at the end of the '08 recession, or the start of the '08 recession, I should say, if you go back and look at a stock chart, you'll see that we were in a bull market that lasted pretty much until the pandemic, right? And then even then it was a flash crash. Why? Because the Fed can manipulate the markets. And so why is that important to understand, right? It's important to bring up that context because when we have an overextended bull markets, right, it kind of artificially tells the story of asset prices. Because here's the thing, here's how it works. If I make borrowing money cheap, right, and I de-incentivize you to save, right, it's a perfect storm for like, well, I'm not getting much money in my savings account. It's not going to cost too much money to borrow. I'm going to not put money in my savings account. I'm going to borrow money to boost the economy, and I'm going to put the money that I would ordinarily save in the markets. That doesn't necessarily mean that the asset values of the stocks in the market have substantially changed their fundamentals. It means that people are moving dollars, fiat, over into assets, which is inflating prices. And in normal markets, they self-regulate, right? When the Fed can manipulate the markets, it's a lot harder for the markets to self-regulate. So, and when that happens, people then go back to true fundamentals and gravitate towards hard assets. It's like, okay, cool. Well, smart money gravitates towards hard assets. All right, cool. I know that the dollar is worth nothing. We took the dollar was worth nothing. We inflated asset prices in the stock market. Valuations eventually have to come down because this is not sustainable. I don't want to get the rug pulled from under me. I'm going to start moving some money to a hard asset that's a little more predictable, a little more sustainable. So that's kind of the full understanding of why we're seeing that uptick in gold, which goes back to what I just said about consumer sentiment, right? Because the stock market, while it's not the economy, it is a representation of the businesses that fuel the economy. The only reason why the stock market is not the economy is because only a small percentage of people, believe it or not, have a decent amount of money in the market, right? So it's not a total representation of what our true economy looks like, because the economy includes blue-collar workers, everyday people, a lot of people who aren't investing in the market, maybe outside, let's say they were invested by virtue of their 401k. So to answer your other question, is it a good time to buy gold? Well, gold is an asset like anything else, right? And if people are flocking to an asset, right, when it's at an all-time high, what does that mean? That means that people that were holding it before, if they're smart, they're probably going to take profit as they see you flock into it. You're going to get the rug pulled from out of you. They're going to trim their position or their holdings in gold, and ultimately you're probably going to feel that pain. Now, like anything else, like stocks or whatever, if you believe in that asset class and you plan to hold it for the foreseeable future, yes, you could rebound. And it's never about timing the market, but we do want to be paying attention to fundamental analysis and when it makes sense to buy certain asset classes, right? So I'm always a big fan of, if I'm going to hold something for 5 or 10 plus years, then yeah, I'm cool, I'm okay buying it, at reasonable levels. But if I can help it, if I can have some opportunity cash from the sidelines and kind of see if those all-time highs are going to maybe pull back a little bit while still doing my, base level of dollar cost averaging, that's what I'm going to do. Right, but for the average investor, I'm not going to flock to gold just because the headlines and everybody's telling me gold is the thing to do. I'm going to pay attention to asset prices. I'm going to still make sure that the companies I believe in the stock market, that I'm taking advantage of emotional decisions that people are making in the market. For example, Microsoft, I think, lost $337 billion in market cap today. I'm buying more, right? I'm buying more Microsoft because I still believe in the underlying thesis of that company. So I'm looking at my opportunity capital, deciding where I have places to be able to take advantage of that, but I'm not necessarily flocking to any asset class at all time highs. But I do want to give the context as to why we're seeing that activity.
Yeah, and just for context, for everybody listening, if you held gold from January 2021 to January of 2024, your investment would have made 1% in 3 years. So, for all my gold people out there, if you would have held it, your money, you would have made no money essentially in 3 years. Now, gold in the last year is up 97%. Right? So for 3 years, it did nothing. And then 1 year, it went up 90%. So I just want y'all to get the backstory on the way gold moves before you go jumping into an asset that you have no backdated, you have done no backdated research in, chasing a high that might come crashing back down. So I just want to give context on how it's been performing since 2021 and how it's performed in the last 12 months.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the next thing I think I want to bring up is this new news that just dropped today about banks matching the $1,000 Trump accounts. So for those of you all that don't know, in the new tax bill, there is a section that Trump added where if you have a child that's born between 2025 and 2028 and they're American, they have a social security number, the government will fund them a account with $1,000. This money is going to be invested in low-cost indexes, and the kid, you can't withdraw the money to 18, and if you withdraw before 59 and a half, you have to pay taxes and a penalty, right? But it's a free $1,000. And as a parent, you can match up to $5,000 of this. You can match up to $5,000 per year into this account. So the whole point of the Trump accounts is to get your child invested as early as humanly possible, right? Because most of us, our parents don't invest for us probably at all. We don't invest for ourselves until we're in our 20s when we have our first real job. This is to get people investing from day one. Now, Bank of America just committed to matching Trump accounts up to $1,000 for any newborn babies that you have. Now, all the news hasn't been released yet, but I'm assuming in order to get this, you have to be a Bank of America customer, right? So what I believe Bank of America is trying to do is do a power play to say, hey, the Trump accounts open in July of 2026. So if you want this $1,000 bank match, just like we have an employer match, this bank match, come move your money over to Bank of America, where they can give you 0.00001% on your money, and they can go lend your money out for 21%, right? So I think this is interesting, and I think it's a smart power move to get a lot of money over there to basically make more money off people's money.
Yeah, I mean that's chess not checkers, 101. Because at the end of the day, it's almost like how Alex Hormozi, it has a strategy of like giving you what you get on the back end is perceived to be more valuable, and so you're willing to do more on the front end. So it's like, yeah, sure, I'll move over $50,000 of my money to get this $1,000 complimentary account, right? So I think it's just great framing and a great strategy on their part to be able to get more inflows to their bank. So yeah, kudos to them. And for the parents who have to take advantage of it, I mean, being able to have a $2,000 account that your kid gets to start with, and you can obviously, I'm assuming, you can still contribute to those accounts yourself, right?
Yeah, you can contribute up to $5,000 to these accounts per year.
Yeah, so and still contribute to those accounts. I mean, you really put your kid in a very good position, right, for years to come. So I'm a big fan of it. I think it's great.
Yeah, I think it's a first mover advantage, but I think every bank will just be like, dude, we'll do it too. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, bro, like, Chase gonna be like, yeah, bro, we'll do it too. Like, what are we talking about? But I do think it's a great idea, and I think overall, I'm just happy with the overarching sentiment of what the account should do, which is investing early and often. Because I saw somebody make a stat. It's like if you have this account from day one, and you contribute $5,000 to it from when your kid is born to when they're 18, and you stop contributing to it. By 35, they'll have well over $1 million, $1.5 million in this account by 35. 35.
Crazy.
You only invested 5,000 times 18. Don't do public math. But that's 50. That's 90,000 maybe, something like that.
You said 5,000. It's 5,000 because it's 5,000 a year.
Yeah, 5,000 a year times 18.
Yeah, 90,000. Yeah, 90,000.
That don't do public math rule is for people that don't do math for a living. Period. So that's $90,000 you contribute, $5,000 a year, and if you do that from when they're born, and the account's already open, you do that from when they're born to when they're 35, they'll have well over $1 million, and you know that's a pretty good start for
A very good start.
You know,
Very good start. I mean, obviously, cost of living and inflation and all the things will be much different in 18 years, but still a much better head start than I had. That's for sure. What else is interesting in the news right now? Did you see how software stocks are sliding because of fears of AI disruption? And I just think it's just so interesting because I bet you can remember when we were in college, right? Like becoming a computer engineer, right, or computer science major, like that was the thing, right? And now that very industry is being disrupted because it can all be done through AI.
Let me tell you this story. So my freshman year of college, you get to like pick some elective courses that you want to take because you don't know what you want to major in. And I'm not pretty sure I want to major in accounting, but it was this class called CS 101. It was Computer Science 101. And I put it on my like, let's just try it out. I walked in that classroom, bro. And for the first 18 minutes of the lecture, which is all I stayed for, I thought the professor was literally speaking another language. Hey, bro, I was in the class for 18 minutes. And I just remember, I didn't understand a word that she was saying. And I'm like, everybody in this room is smarter than me. I'm about to leave. And it's because they probably were. And they paid a lot of money for that degree. And it was really hard, really late nights, just to find out a decade later that their job
completely disrupted.
Tough.
Yeah, and that just goes to show you success is rented. It is not owned, and the rent is due every day, not every month. The rent is due every day. You just never know when your industry is going to be disrupted. I remember it was yesterday. The Garmin GPS was a product that probably I'm pretty sure it was a multi-million-dollar company. And then Apple decided that we'll just have the GPS as an free add-on to our phone. That whole separate GPS industry just went up in smoke. All because a company decided to innovate and just add it as a feature. Your business is a feature for us. Think about how crazy that is, right?
Yikes.
Think about how crazy that is. So if you're listening to this, maybe you're not a computer engineer, but ask yourself, poke holes in your own ship, right? Is AI on pace to disrupt what I'm doing, right? And if so, how do I get ahead of it, right? How do I get ahead of it? How do I be the innovator in my space, or how do I just acquire more skills in general so that I'm not impacted by it? But it's a real thing. It's a real thing, right? You get paid for the value you bring to the marketplace. I think last year, Mark Zuckerberg was giving out 9-figure bonuses when he was poaching people from OpenAI, right, at the time, because they had a skill set that was in demand. So use ChatGPT to figure out how you can get in demand, and make sure you're acquiring those skill sets. That's one thing you can do in uncertainty is acquire skills, right? If you don't know what to invest in, you don't know what to do, invest in yourself, acquire skills so that you can be not replaceable to the marketplace, right? You need to be somebody that the marketplace needs, regardless of what's happening with the evolution.
Yeah, speaking of somebody's feature, somebody's business model being, somebody's entire business model being somebody's feature, one thing that we do with our clients is we teach them every single week about the latest and greatest financial strategies and tax strategies. And fortunately and unfortunately, there are a lot of people in the space that have an entire business of just teaching people financial education. and we actually teach our clients and we do the work for them. So in a sense, one of our features is somebody's entire business model.
Yeah.
You know,
You put it like that.
it's kind of crazy.
Their business is their whole business model is one of our features.
One of our features.
Yeah.
Just saying, as a client, you get the services and you get the education. Shameless plug. Dude, I think that's a great catch up. I think that we gave people a lot of the latest and greatest headlines. We talked about gold. We talked about the recent sentiment of the stock market, the latest on the new tax bill, and we talked about the Trump accounts with the banks matching. Those are kind of like the biggest headlines. Literally, one of them just came out today. And our goal with these live streams is to give y'all this information in real time.
Absolutely. I mean, one last interesting thing that I'll share. I know, even though Apple is a company that is extremely prominent, I mean, so many users, so many adopters. It was interesting to see the Apple sales surge by 16% on staggering iPhone demand, right? So I'll be interested to see what the stock does. The stock has, hasn't performed substantially. It's been stable, but not like something that I'm really excited about. I've trimmed, some of my position over the past, couple of years. And I've been an Apple loyalist for quite some time. But it'd be interesting to see if Apple takes some of that insane amount of cash they have on their balance sheet to innovate, right? I think they chose Gemini over ChatGPT recently as it relates to fueling their AI and their Siri updates. So that's interesting. I remember one of a couple podcast episodes ago with New York Stock Exchange, I told you guys I was very bullish on Google, right? Because I was like, okay, as long as they're willing to make that pivot, nobody is more equipped from a data standpoint to dominate the AI space, right? So very excited to see what happens with Google, very excited to see what happens interested to see what happens with Apple, to see if there's some innovation there with these giants. Literally, there's updates coming in as we're speaking right now. Trump sues the IRS and the Treasury for $10 billion.
That man is crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah. So maybe we'll touch on that next week. But yeah, guys, very interested to see what happens with those giants and heavy hitters. I'm hoping that Apple decides to innovate. I'm bullish on Google. I already mentioned that on a previous podcast episode. So stay tapped in, stay tuned in. If there's any topics that you guys want to hear from us, want us to report on, want us to touch on, just let us know. It might be in a video coming soon.
Yes, sir. See y'all next time. Peace.